Morning glory and evening grace, America. It's Hugh Hewitt in Colorado today. Yesterday I was on Face the Nation in Washington, D.C., and I'm back from New York where I've launched my book. I'm joined now by Donald Trump, candidate for the President of the United States. Donald Trump, welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Well, thank you, Hugh. It's great to be with you. Really great.
Now, I would be remiss. I've got the greatest marketing and promotion genius in the last many years on the phone talking to me. And I've got this new book, The Queen, The Epic Ambition of Hillary and the Coming of a Second Clinton Era. What's your advice on how to sell books like this, Donald Trump, in this era?
Well, I think selling books just generally is, it is a lot different than it used to be. I did The Art of the Deal, as you know, and it was the number one selling business book, or at least so they say, of all time. And, it was a different world. It was... I've never seen an industry change like the book-selling business, because today they pick up their computer, they pick up their iPhone, and they see everything that they want to see. So it's a little bit different. But I think if a message is good, if you can just get the message out, but today you really need the right message to sell a book. There's no question about that.
Can I get Donald Trump to say, the Queen, buy it, get it?
You said the Queen?
Yes.
The Queen, yeah. Okay. Is that, and that, let me ask you something. Is that your book?
Oh, it's my book. I
that's a good. Hillary. Good. The Queen, buy it, get it. It's got to be good.
Oh, there you go. Now, let's get serious. Speaking about the Queen, she had this to say about you this weekend, Donald Trump.
I think decent people need to stand up against it. We should not accept it, Joe.
But how do you stop it?
Well, I think we have to speak out against it. Like, for example, a recent entry into the Republican presidential campaign said some very inflammatory things about Mexicans. Everybody should stand up and say, that's not acceptable. You don't talk like that on talk radio. You don't talk like that on, the kind of political campations. No, but I think he is emblematic. So I want people to understand it's not about him, it's about everybody. But then the second thing is guns. Let's just cut to the chase. It's guns.
So Donald Trump, first of all, she attacked you personally, didn't name you. What do you think about that?
Well, number one, I'm honored. And number two, as far as Mexico is concerned, I believe strongly in a very, very strong border. We have no border right now. It's like a sieve. It's like water pouring through. It's ridiculous. And I have a great relationship with Mexico. I have a great relationship with Mexican people. And frankly, I just feel strongly that you have to have a border. It has to be strong. I often say that nobody can build a wall like I can build a wall. I build great buildings all over the world, and frankly, nobody can build like I can build, and nobody can build a wall like I can. And some people thought that was a racist statement. It's not. And I'm not talking about keeping Mexico's out. I'm talking about keeping the world out. We're like a dumping ground for the rest of the world. They just send, and we're not getting the finest people. We're getting people that many other countries, including Mexico, don't want. They're sending them over to us because our government is so stupid and so foolishly run that we accept everybody with open arms. It's not like the old days. So we're getting a lot of bad people coming in. And I'm not talking about Mexico. I'm talking about a lot of bad people, period.
So she is
they're coming through and they're pouring through our border, and we don't know what to do with them. So we literally fly them to all parts of the country. We take them to all parts of the country. So I feel we need a strong border. I know. If we're going to have a country, we need a border, and we have to have a strong border. So illegals aren't coming in, and that's illegal from all over the world.
But Hillary was saying that you were using incendiary speech. Did she falsely accuse you?
Well, I would say yes, because I don't. I mean, all I do is I want to have borders. Now, if that is incendiary, if that's being tough or being unfair, you let me know. But I think having borders and having strong borders, and I mean strong borders, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And frankly, this country better get smarter. We're not going to have a country. As I said, we're a dumping ground for the rest of the world, and we have got to create a border. You don't have a country without a border. What's a country? How do you define a country if you don't have borders? So many people have given me praise for saying it. A lot of the people running, they don't want to say it because, you take some heat when you say it. And this has nothing to do with the Mexicans coming in. This has to do with the world coming in. The world is coming in. You're going to have Middle East coming in. You're going to have everybody coming in because it's literally a sieve.
Now, Donald Trump, let's turn to the second part of what the former Secretary of State said. Let's talk about guns.
Right.
What would you do, Donald Trump, to end gun violence in the United States?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge Second Amendment person. I believe in it. And I told the story. Actually, it was very interesting because when I announced last Tuesday, which was quite an announcement, we've gotten wonderful wonderful feedback on that. And when I announced, I told the story about a woman and a man living together, husband and wife, and they're up in upstate New York. You had these two killers amazingly get out of a maximum security prison, which was fascinating in itself. And they get out, and they're vicious guys. And the woman was always against guns. I mean, strongly against guns. And the man was in favor. And all of a sudden she said, you know what, you're right. Now they said they have a gun on every table because they don't know who's going to pop into their house. And it's very interesting. But no, I've always been a very strong Second Amendment person. Interestingly, if you look at Chicago, they have about the strongest gun control laws in the nation. They are riddled with problems. And you look at New York, tremendous gun control laws. Very, very hard to get a gun, almost without exception. It's rampant. So, you know, it's like you can't legislate against this. I'm a Second Amendment. I believe in it. You have to have the right to protect yourself. One thing you know for sure, Hugh, is that the people, the bad ones, are not giving up their guns, okay? And, you know, you have some people, they want to give up the guns. They want to change the size of the magazines where you can have 7 bullets, not 10. Can you imagine a bad guy loading up a magazine and he says, you know, I think I'll abide by the law. I'll only put in 7 bullets. You have a magazine that holds 10 and more bullets, and they say, oh, good, we'll only put in 7 because we want to abide by the law. So the bad people, the bad folks that have these guns are not giving them up, and the good ones will give them up if legislated, and you can't allow that to happen.
So Donald Trump, we have 6 incidents, and let me list them for the audience. We have the massacre in Charleston last Wednesday night. We've got Michael Brown in Ferguson. We have Freddie Gray in Baltimore. We have Eric Gardner in New York City. Tamir Rice in Cleveland. Of course, Trayvon Martin. Are they connected in some way? Because
I was just going to say, as you're reading them off, they're all so different when you think of it. I mean, they're all so different, and each one of those is quite a bit different from the other, and all very sad and horrible. But they're all, I mean, they're really, I think they're very, very different incidents.
And so what should the conversation be about? As I said on Face the Nation yesterday, after the people are buried and grieved in Charleston is when people ought to talk about the Confederate flag. But generally speaking, there is this series of incidents involving race. Is there a lesson that Donald Trump draws from them?
Well, one of the things that I watched in Charleston, and I'm there a lot, and we have a lot of relationships over there, and I thought it was, first of all, it's horrible, and this guy is a sick cookie and lots of problems and everything else, but I thought it was amazing the way the people came together. It was, like, beautiful. There was something beautiful, even right after this horrible tragedy took place. The way they held hands and prayed, I saw them drop to their knees and start to pray. There was something really dignified, and as horrible as the tragedy was, there was something beautiful the way the people came together and still are coming together. So I thought it was, maybe it was a lesson almost, because you see so many problems in so many different locations, and all of a sudden you see this beautiful aftermath to a horrible tragedy. And I watched it, and I thought it was really incredible, actually.
But our race relations cratering, that is true. That is very inspiring, and a lot of pulpits heard a lot of sermons yesterday about forgiveness, such as the family's practice. But our race relations generally in America cratering right now.
Well, we have an African-American president, and, you know, the biggest thing that I thought, I was never a fan, but I always thought that when Obama got elected, he'd be a cheerleader for the country. And certainly you would have thought he would have been much better for African Americans, who are really suffering more than anybody else right now in terms of jobs and everything else. So you have an African American president, and African American youth is doing worse than virtually it's ever done. I mean, we've had some pretty bad times in this country, but virtually it's ever done. And you would think that couldn't have happened with Obama as president. So, hey, look, I am a big believer in jobs. We're losing our jobs to China. We're losing our jobs to Mexico and so many other places. And I'm just a big believer. We have to bring our jobs back. We have to have plants being built in this country, not in other countries. I'm a free trader, but the problem with free trade is we need smart leaders, and we don't have smart leaders. I love free trade. I love the concept, but we don't have free trade with China, because if you want to sell something in China, if you're a manufacturer, and you want to go to China and sell your product, it's going to be almost impossible for you to do so. And yet they come in here and they openly sell it, no tax, no nothing. So I believe in free trade totally, but you need smart leaders, and you need rules.
But Donald Trump, when you get on a microphone, the whole country watches you. And I call you just an American P.T. Barnum combined with Howard Dean combined. You're just legendary at getting people to focus on you. Yesterday, Michael Gerson said one of the Republicans has to step up and talk about ending or diminishing violence in the United States, and I agree with that. How could Donald Trump help in that? I mean, how do you help stop the slaughter in Chicago, not just the slaughter in Charleston, but generally what can candidates do to bring down the volume and to increase the peace?
It is a huge problem. It's a problem that's very rarely discussed. It's being discussed by you a little bit and a few other people, but even you don't want to hit it the way you really like to hit it. If you hit it hard and if you start talking about and going into great details, you get called racist, you get called everything. It's a huge problem in this country. People need to be enthusiastic. They need to love our country. They need to have hope. They have no hope. They absolutely have no hope, and they have no jobs. They need jobs. They need hope. They need cheerleading. They have nothing going right now. The gang violence, which is a part of this, is unbelievable. So it's a big problem. But one of the ways you have to start, and you look at what's going on in Chicago, it's like a bloodbath, and it's only in certain areas of Chicago. And nobody talks about it. They don't say that. They just talk about Chicago. I mean, it's only in certain areas in Chicago. It's in certain areas of New York and lots of other places. They need hope and they need jobs. You got to create incentive for people to go out, and you have to be able to have the jobs. I know people that have, they go to college. Their kids go to college. They spend money. They borrow to the hilt. They owe tremendous student loan debt. They have debt all over the place. And they get out and they do well. They get good marks and they're really good students and they can't get a job.
Last question, because I think you're onto something here, and I know we got a hard break at 15. They need cheerleading. You just said that. Ronald Reagan was a big cheerleader. I worked for Ronald Reagan. He was a
huge
great
cheerleader. Yeah,
but explain to people what you mean by cheerleading.
Creating a spirit for the country. We don't have that spirit anymore. It's very interesting. My daughter Ivanka told me a story that she would go when she was a very young girl to a communist country, Czechoslovakia, and they were so proud of the American dollar. They used to I never heard this before. They used to take the American dollar and scotch tape it onto their windshield of their car, even if it was a dollar bill, because they were so proud of having anything American. They were proud of even just a small $1 association with the United States. And they'd post it. And she said today it's a whole different thing. Today they laugh at us and they scoff at us. But, she told me that story, and I think I'm going to use that a little bit. I haven't used it except for you right now. But I heard it 2 days ago, and she said, Dad, when I used to go to Czechoslovakia, because her in-laws were there, she'd go there for a week. And the people were so proud of that dollar being posted on the windshield of their car. We don't have anything like that today. Today, they're not proud.
Donald Trump, I am glad to have you use my prompt, and I will use your prompt to promote the Queen. Thanks for coming. Come back early and often through 2015.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Hugh.
Be well, Donald.